Right, guys, the last theme that we're going to talk about is match day preparation. So game day, the day has arrived. We're back to refereeing, to getting in the middle. We're around our peers and players, and we're going to rock and roll. And all the hard work that you've done over the previous weeks is all going to come together and hopefully allow you to perform to your best and enjoy it and have a good time, and feel good about, you know, the 80 minutes in the middle and how you communicate and be around the players and your peers. So what we talk about, I guess, with match day is 48 hours before the match, so match day minus 2 days, 24 hours before the match day minus 1 day. We touched on it a moment ago with sleep and nutrition, but also game day. So things to think about perhaps would be training towards that end of the week, sleep, travel, nutrition, hydration, and then when you arrive at the venue, activation, body preparation, mobility. Do you arrive with an hour and a half, an hour? Do you rock up literally before you blow the whistle? Where are you in your preparation? Thinking about traffic. So I know one of our full-time guys was meant to travel up north, and all the trains were cancelled, and Jack had to step into me and do the Newcastle game. I think it was this weekend. So you know, that was a big deal for Craig, who couldn't get on the train. He was obviously devastated he couldn't travel. This was a contingency plan, so Jack had to step in and be ready. So he was AR1, but had to then referee. So he had to mentally prepare. He had to know that he was physically prepared to referee. And again, I think at the highest level, knowing that you could be drawn in if there's an injury or if there's a traffic delay or if there's a train that's cancelled, to still step into the middle and perform at the highest level, which is what had to happen for Jack last weekend. So these kind of things are important. The other thing is technical preparation. So it's not just about physical, it's about your mental preparation in the middle, technically, you know, what are the law changes? I know there's been a lot of law changes at the moment with return to rugby. You know, are you aware of the latest information? Are you prepped for it? And also, are you anxious? Are you nervous? It's been a while for everybody. You know, how do you feel about that? How do you prepare for the game? Are you know, have you got a little strategy to help you kind of get ready emotionally as well as physically? And also think about half time. What do you guys do for half time? So you've got your preparation before the game, your warm up, your mental prep, your physical prep, half time routine, and then you've got your full time behaviours, cool down. Do you cool down at the venue, or do you kind of just refuel, go for a wee, hit the road and get back home? So where are you guys with all of that? What's your kind of game day -2 and thereafter for everything?
This is probably one of my areas where I'm pretty strict in terms of preparation, just because I don't know, it's just with my job I have to be quite organized with specifics around timing and stuff like that. So leading up to game day, I'm pretty regimented in what I do. So I like to have everything boxed off the day before the game. So game day -2. So that includes, like, I want all my kit ready. I want my personal preparation for the game done. I want my travel planned, like you discussed there, Al. Also, I live on the Isle of Wight, so I have to factor into some contingencies for my travel, because let's say I'm going to Leicester or Newcastle or something and I've got a really long trip, the weather can play a big factor in my travel. So I always have to check the weather to make sure the ferries that I want to get are going to be running, because if they're not, then I have to factor in an extra few hours to go to the other side of the Isle of Wight and get one of the bigger ferries so that we can cross in worse weather. So I try and get all that done 2 days prior, and the reason for that is I don't want to be thinking about anything else on the day before. I just want to be sort of getting into the zone about the game, so I don't want to be worrying about those sorts of things. And then yeah, so that kind of leaves the day before the game for me to not have to worry about much at all. So, and then going into game day, always allow myself an extra hour. So whatever time I plan to be there, I add an hour onto that. And you know, sometimes you desperately need that hour, and other times you'll be there way before. But you know, there's always somewhere to stop and get a coffee, and the chances are, you know, particularly if you're working with someone else, if you're lucky enough to have a team around you, and then someone else will be there fairly early as well. And then, yeah, look, game day, get arriving at the grounds. Usually, I think most of us would get there 90 minutes before, and get in, have a cup of coffee, have a quick look at the pitch, see what it's like, see what the weather's like, chat to a few people as you do, and then kind of an hour before is when my personal prep sort of begins, and that will be with a bit of mobility, getting the car out my legs kind of thing, and then onto my usual warm up, which we've discussed in other bits and pieces on the pitch. So pretty structured for me. I know we discussed the halftime stuff in other episodes, but I have to be prepared from each step, and that gives me real peace of mind. And I think it's really important. Just one other thing I'd like to add. I know that obviously for our preparation, we get the luxury of lots of footage and all this kind of stuff that just isn't available at every level. And I think one of the things I would do when I was coming up sort of through the ranks is just pick up the phone and talk to some other refs. And sometimes it can be a bit uncomfortable because you might not have spoken to that guy before. I remember phoning some of the guys around me who I hadn't really met, but I'd read on the appointments that they refereed them the week before, and I thought, it's worth giving them a call. And actually, it opens some doors, and you can get some good dialogue going, and that can be quite helpful. It can be real good part of your prep, because he might have some intel, about either difficult individuals or a difficult area that he faced on the day that might sort of impact your approach and your preparation to the game. So I just found that quite useful when back when we didn't have access to any footage to try and prepare ourselves. So I'm sure some of the other guys are slightly different. I'm sure Hamish chucked his kit in on Saturday morning, get straight down there. But that's roughly what I do anyway.
So look, I'm fairly similar. I like a bit of structure before game day so that I'm not panicking on it. Similar to Adam, living in Norwich is quite a long way from a lot of rugby, so I've got to make sure I've planned my journey in beforehand. So for me, obviously, you're doing all your prep in the week. You've had the game the weekend before, and you want that sort of squared away by middle of the week to really allow you to focus on the one ahead. So I don't know, you might need to get in contact with your ARs a few days before. You might need to watch some footage or make those calls. So I'll try and get that done on sort of the Wednesday, the Thursday that week. Really, I like to be sort of in full game mode from sometime mid-Friday afternoon. That's my sort of right. Everything else is getting switched off. It's in rugby. It's settle in, watch the Friday night game, get a good dinner prepped, pack your kit bag the night before. And I'm awful for this. I will pack my bag 2 or 3 times to make sure I've remembered all my socks and my boots and my whistles. And then on game day itself, so it's normally, I'm like Adam, I will leave an extra hour beforehand, particularly for things like if we normally got a 2 o'clock or a 3 o'clock kickoff, and you've got to be at the club an hour and a half before, that's 12:30, that's 1:30, that's prime lunchtime. And I think going back to the points on nutrition and everything, I will plan a lot of that in, so I know that extra time in, so I know I can stop and have lunch somewhere. So my latest pre-match ritual is I will always stop and I will get a coffee and I will sit and have my lunch. And then I will move on to the game. I'll try and find a services maybe 20 minutes away, so that I know I've got that time to chill out, decompress, have a bit of food, and I'm not rushing when I get there. I'm eating 20 minutes before kickoff or anything like this. In terms of getting to the venue, look, it's all pretty similar. You go, you walk about, you look at the pitch, you find the coaches, you have a bit of a chat, and as we've touched on in the warm-up session, I'll get on with that when I've got the time and when I need to do that before the game. And similar at half time, it's all about just giving yourself that couple of minutes to calm down and to go through the game mentally. I find it's that checklist of all the different bits you've got there, but that's more of a mental side of things than the physical to me. But again, it's get yourself into a routine that will allow you to mentally switch on as much as physically. To be honest, we all prep differently, but if your head's not in the right space for game day, if you've not managed to, let's say you're packing your bag at the last minute, or you're worried about traffic or something, it's going to affect your performance. And I think we've all been there. So just know what you need to do to prepare to get yourself ready for it.
Obviously, training's all boxed off, so I trust the process, trust I've done it properly, trust I'm ready. I make sure I try to get to bed a little bit early-ish because it's because of the early starts. Make sure, like Adam said, get a big feed in the night before. Try not to have something too funky because you don't want to be feeling a bit groggy the next day. The amount of referees that have a curry the night before and then are rather smelly afterwards is ridiculous. And then I always try and get plenty of water on as well. I easily forget and then get dehydrated. So I have an app which screams at me if I've not had enough water and tells me off, which has completely changed how I feel because I realised I was dehydrated all the time. So that's changed. And then, like everyone else has suggested, try and get some food on the way up. So I always like my comfort food. I get my hot chocolate and my panini. Always get that factored in. And then, I'll try and get to the ground between 2 hours and 90 minutes beforehand. So I'm just no rush, no stress into the changing room. And then it's about activating and getting that heart rate up before kickoff. And then afterwards, I think as all us referees are pretty keen just to get out, get home because it's a long journey back. And it just means that if you're going to do some recovery stuff, you've got to just be more diligent when you get home and be aware because you might have missed an opportunity to get the early stuff in beforehand. But otherwise, it's not very complicated. It's actually pretty similar to back when we were playing. All the processes are pretty similar because we're still there to do a job, still there to do a performance. So for me, it hasn't changed that much. The only difference is instead of traveling with a team of people, you're traveling on your own and meeting up with a couple of people at the game beforehand.
Yeah, I think from my side of things, going back to your first point initially, Al, where you get chucked into games sometimes. It's the same for any match official coming up through the system. You may get a call on a Friday night to say when you thought you were off or you were doing another game and they say, all right, can you come and do this game instead because so-and-so's cried off because they're ill or something happens. So it's just be prepared and be ready for the unexpected. I had to referee Stade Francais against Po, I think it was, on 2 hours notice, trying to speak French to the lads at the start and then thought, I'll just speak English, might be a lot easier. But it's one way you've just got to be adaptable and just go with it. Make sure you've done all the work pre-game, not necessarily to perform as a referee, but you know your laws, you know exactly what the regs are for that competition, regardless of whether you're running touch or whatever. If you know that you're the reserve official, it's just having that preparation to make sure that if you are dropped into it, you've done everything that you can do and you're ready for it, rather than just having to be a hostage to fortune and going into the game underprepared. Yeah, it's one for everyone. And other things in terms of coming up through the levels, I always like to talk to someone at halftime when we talk about halftime and post-match. So if you've got an assessor or if you've got a confidant, parent, friend, whoever that might want to come to a game because they've got nothing better to do on a Saturday afternoon, just have a chat with them and see what pictures they're seeing, because you as a referee will be encapsulated within the game, going from decision to decision, and you may miss a few of the bigger pictures and you may miss how potentially you're coming across with players, for instance, or how you're interacting in certain situations. So if you have someone who has the time and inclination, assessor's a good one. I know there's lots of people who don't like talking to assessors because they always feel like they are going to be judging them on what they're doing. But I always try and build a good relationship with the assessor and try and use him to the best of my ability. Yes, you can manipulate them if you want to and get the best out of them and build it towards how you want him to perceive you. But it's also a good one for you as a referee to see what he's viewing during the game, what his issues are, and then you can potentially go out and correct them. But I always like to speak to people in terms of when you get up the levels, when you have lads in the changing room at half time, I usually take a couple of minutes once you've run around for the first half, take a couple of minutes to relax, do whatever everyone needs to do. If you're well hydrated, then you probably need to go to the loo by that stage. But if you're like Woody, you'll be like a camel and be able to hold it in, so it's all right. But yeah, after you've had those couple of minutes just to lower the heart rate, then discussing the hot topics of the game, how the sort of key 5 areas are going with your scrums and your lineouts. Is the game plan that you set out beforehand coming to fruition? Have the players that you've prepped on all week performed how you thought they would do? Is there anything you need to change? Have that discussion. Then also at the end, it's making sure you have another couple of minutes just to relax, switch off a bit, then get the mind ready to go again for the next 40 minutes to be able to perform again and finish the game off. Because yeah, it's the mind's working in overtime when you're doing these sorts of games, multiple decisions and non-decisions that you're making at every breakdown, every facet of the game. So to have that switch off time is pretty key, just to help the mind and the body reset and go again, really. Adam likes to think that I'm not organised, but I'm relatively organised. Everything's in my diary. I even set out my travel time, so I know and I have a reminder, this is when you're going to set off. This is what you're going to get to the game, get to the ground. And I usually try and arrive at least 2 hours before the game. So I've got time built into that travel if there's traffic, or if you get people that crash on the way or whatever, you can factor that in, and you can still get there and you're not rushed before the game. Because as Katie said, we've all done it where we've turned up sort of 20 minutes before a game because we've not realised how far it was, or we didn't realise that X wasn't happening, or there was a big event going on, football game or something, and then we're rushing, and it doesn't add to a good performance if you're late and you're having to rush through everything. So plenty of time, plenty of preparation would be my top tips.
One of the big things I think that we all probably support is we're all here because we love rugby. You know, you guys work hard, you give so much time and effort to the sport that you love, and the bottom line really is that you want to have fun. I mean, for me, being involved in any sport is about meeting people, traveling, having fun, performing at the highest level that I can perform at. And I think a lot of the things that we've spoken about the last couple of weeks have really reinforced your passion for the game, your love for the game, the fact that you know you have lots of fun with it, but also pride. So you all step out in the middle of that pitch on a weekend or whenever the game is, and you have pride, and you know that you've got confidence in your performance because you're prepared. And I think one of the key themes that we've touched on throughout has been preparation, whether that's physical, mental, technical, tactical, you know, communicating with people. And I think recognising those really key values that rugby withholds is really important. And I think another thing for me is to control the controllables. So we're discussing physical preparation in this series, and it's something that we can control. We can control whether we train, we can choose to do it, and we can choose to push ourselves, and we can choose to do different sessions. And I think having that about you has allowed you to be successful in your careers so far. And I think I'm hoping that people will watch this in the community game and be really inspired by where you've all come from. You've all been at the society level, community level, and inspiring yourselves, whether it's at a community level, and that is your optimum, and that you love it. That's what it's all about. Whether it's at Twickenham on a Saturday or at your local park on a Saturday, it's about being around people that have that passion for the sport. And I think you guys have reflected that beautifully over the last few weeks. And I think that for me has to be the crux. You do it because you love it, you're passionate about it, but you're also good at it, but you work hard at it. And I think they're really key themes.